pick up and post, even in the Facebook groups, you could pick anywhere. So that's really, I love Facebook. I feel like it's so underused and a lot of people kind of turn their nose up to it. Older people are on Facebook, but older people have properties. So I think that if you haven't used your Facebook profile, you should be dusting that thing off.
You're listening to Ice Cream with Investors, a podcast that is dedicated to teaching you how to better invest your money so that you can live a more intentional life. I'm your host, Matt Four, and it is my goal to teach and empower you to remove the roadblocks to your financial success.
All right, Jenn and Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, that rhymed, and I didn't even realize that my daughter would be so proud that I'm over here rhyming. But
there we go.
We like to start with the difficult questions here. Joe, what's your favorite ice cream?
I am easy. I love French vanilla. That's by far my favorite.
So what is French vanilla versus just regular? Is it just more bougie?
It has a little bit more vanilla flavor to it than just plain vanilla.
Gotcha. Jenn, how about you?
Coffee ice cream, specifically Haagen-Dazs.
I love some coffee ice cream. Love it. Well, tell our listeners, what's the scoop? What do you do today?
So today we are full-time real estate investors. We moved from New York to Florida, from Rochester, New York to we live in Sarasota area now. We buy and sell properties, especially with creative finance, but it did not start that way. So, we're doing deals now, which is exciting, but it wasn't always this fun.
We also homeschool our 2 kids. So that's really awesome. We run our team and we coach others.
Oh my gosh, I've got so many questions about homeschooling. It seems like that and monastery school is popping up everywhere right now. But before we get there, Jenn, where did y'all's real estate journey begin?
Well, I have to give him all the credit. I was an English teacher. I love teaching middle school English. I own my own house. I met him in 2008. And he owned his own house. And even though we met in January, by the end of the summer, he's dragging me to all these disgusting rundown properties. And I was like, what are we doing here? And apparently that's what you do when you want to fix up a property and make it nice again.
Yeah. So so Joe, it sounds like you were involved in real estate beforehand then?
Yeah, I got lucky. I was at a buddy's house in the year 2000, and he bought a course off a late night commercial back in the day. That was all the thing. And he bought this course, but never opened it. So I borrowed it, and I was broke. I was 22 at the time. I had bad credit. I had no money to my name. And when I borrowed that course, within a month later, I had my first deal under contract. I did a double closing, and I made almost $13,000, which to me, that was like I hit a lotto, right? And that's what got me hooked.
So a double closing, did you start off wholesaling then, basically?
Yes. Yep. I found a junker in a good part of town, and the seller lived out of state, and he needed to sell it. He had it rented. It was trashed. He didn't have time to come back and fix it. And so when I reached out, he was like, you must be an angel to come help me because I don't know what I was going to do with this. And we made a deal. And then I just started talking to a few of my friends who were looking for a deal. And the first one I talked to was like, I will take it. And the rest is history.
Yeah. So Joe, how many deals did you do before you met Jenn?
One.
Okay.
I did one deal.
And then you were going to search for other properties kind of at the time you met her?
Yeah, the market was really taking off in 2002, 3, 4, 5. They didn't have things like Zillow. So it was really tough to find, like, how do I find these people? It was a challenge back then. And then in 2008, we all hear about 2008. Well, the market was taking a dip. So these deals just started to pop up and we could find them right on the MLS. And these were like nice neighborhoods, but they just had some rundown houses. And that's what we were finding back then.
So Jenn, I've got to ask, this is a common story where one partner is more into real estate and the other partner might not have had it on their roadmap. And all of a sudden they meet somebody that's super interested in it. Were you all on board the first house you went and looked at and you're like, yeah, I could definitely live in this and flip it? Or did you go kicking and screaming? Talk to us about how that interaction went down.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. The first couple of properties, I would walk in and almost run right back out. They smelled horrible. They were awful. And I didn't quite understand it. I didn't have that mindset of that generational wealth and owning a bunch of investing in real estate. That was just so far off my radar. I was working on my master's degree, teaching kids. I was going to, teach for 30 years, get my little bell and, retire. And Joe was the one who really opened my eyes, because once we met, we realized my schedule and his schedule didn't really align. So yay, I had summers off, but I just met the man of my dreams, and he works like crazy hours at a dealership. And so once we started putting together pieces of the puzzle of, if we want more time together, this is not the way, being a school teacher and working in a dealership. So I started to come around to the ugly houses. But once we stumbled into pretty houses, I certainly became more on board. And, at first I did kind of kick and scream. I was like, oh, that's cute. It's your thing. Whatever. I'll go read my book. But then when we had a handful of properties and I realized it was turning into a business and that I was truly needed, he is not very organized, if you can only imagine. He's the visionary and he loves to make deals, but the bills and the utilities and all the little nitty gritty things, that ended up being like the first place I kind of, took a rollover in.
Do you remember any conversations during that time of like, hey, this is your thing, to this could be our thing? And was there a specific conversation or a specific thing that kind of got you on board, or did you just start seeing it in action and the proof in the pudding kind of thing?
I remember it distinctly. So we got married in 2010. We had both children, and our son was 6 months old. Our daughter, oh no, he's a little older, maybe a little older than that. Our daughter was 2.5, and we had 5 properties, and all of the school taxes got mailed somehow to one of our rental properties. And so I walk into the dealership with 2 kids. I'm all excited to see him, and he's super angry. He's like, "You didn't pay the taxes." And I was like, what do you mean? I know I'm a little sleep deprived, newborn here, yada, yada, but like I'm usually on top of it. Somehow the town, I still don't know how, like mailed everything to one of these properties. I was like, holy moly, like this is an issue, because he was trying to, I think, buy another property and all these liens popped up or something. So we had to like go down to the city hall, all the things. And I was like, this needs me. I'm needed in this business. And that was like the turning point in 2015. Where I started taking it super seriously. And then within the next 2 years, I went all in, and we started learning creative financing, and the rest was history.
Yeah. So Joe, every point in an investor's journey starts off with like wholesaling and then burring and flipping homes to where now you run out of cash in the banking system to go acquire new properties. That certainly was my journey. I got to 10 Fannie and Freddie loans and they were like, nope, you're unloanable anymore. So I kind of had this direction that I had to go in terms of what I was going to do next. But talk to me about, first of all, define what creative financing is, in case that's a new term. And then how did you start learning about creative financing?
Well, just similar to your story, I was at the bank refinancing of one of our next properties, and the same thing. At 10 mortgages, they're going to cut me off. And so that's when I was trying to figure out like what to do. And that's when I stumbled upon creative finance. And creative finance is really just an umbrella term of how to buy real estate without using banks, without using your credit. So even if you've got bad credit, doesn't matter. We've got great credit, but doesn't matter. And with really little to no cash needed to be able to buy all of the real estate you want. So back in 2016, I stumbled upon this. I'm watching videos, I'm reading about it. And this is where I came to Jen and was like, hey, like, I see the picture. This is definitely what we need to start doing. And so we started just diving deep into that, taking some action. And that's how we got our first deal that way, which was a turnkey house, which was the first time we're not buying a junker. We bought it with $100 down in New York.
Wow.
With a few thousand in closing costs. And we had a 0% mortgage with a $500 payment. After we did that deal, we did, sign the paperwork with the seller at McDonald's. I came home, agreement in hand, biggest smile. I smiled like the whole way home. And then at home, I couldn't even get the grin off my face because I was like, this works. Oh my gosh, we need to do this from now on. I'm never going to the banks anymore. There's no need for it. We're just going to do this from now on. And that's what really lit the fuse for us.
What was it about that seller that made them wanted to do a seller finance? Because I think all of creative finance is really finding a problem that someone has and then just having different tools in your tool belt to go solve it. So what was it about that specific seller?
So he inherited his grandfather's home. He had a lot of, memories at the property. It wasn't a junker. So he didn't want to put it on the market and have people trampling through it. He just wanted a quick and easy sale. And he didn't it wasn't for half off because it didn't need all this work. He actually wanted we still got a deal, but he wanted pretty good, dollar for it. So when I agreed to pay his price, but break it up into payments. He was like, wait, you're going to pay the price and cover the closing costs? I'm like, yep. And I'm going to do it in monthly payments. And he was like, you got a deal. Let's go. So was he motivated? Yeah, he wanted to sell. He had sentimental value to it, but didn't want to get lowballed. And in this house, it didn't deserve it. It wasn't some junker that Jen would run out of, like,
and
the
he
old
was
houses.
such a nice guy. He had a buddy living in it, and so he was trying to like take care of the maintenance repairs. Wasn't making any money off of this guy's rent, right? So he kind of was an accidental landlord on top of it, and he was ready to part ways, but wanted it to go in good hands, and he loved us.
And I definitely think accidental landlords or even single family landlords that have more than 2 or 3 properties, but less than 50 are the right target for this kind of strategy, because they've probably been through a couple of cycles of like, yeah, rent's great when it's great, but then somebody decides to trash your house and it costs 30 grand to fix. And you're like, why am I even in this business?
100% correct.
Yeah. So Jen, you mentioned in 2017 that you kind of jumped on board full time. I'm always interested when I have spouses and families on board of like, how do they split family and business responsibilities and kind of come together as a family? So talk to us a little bit about the journey of joining up and being a family business.
Yeah, so the goal in mind was to bring Joe home. At that time, I walked away from teaching and I was able to be a stay-at-home mom with the kids. And really the pivotal point was we got into the rent to own. So we had the 5 traditional rental properties, and now we needed to get rent to own tenant buyers in them. And so I had to learn how to communicate and effectively show these properties virtually, because I wouldn't go to them. And Joe was working. So there was no way he could go to his job and screen these buyers and get them over to the house. And so with the kids, I just made it happen. So I was able to hop on a phone call real quick. They'd be in the car with me. We'd be on the way to the library. My phone would ring. I put in a DVD. The little ones are watching a movie, waiting, 5-10 minutes, and then we'd go into the library. So you just find those small cracks of your day to make it happen. Because again, the vision was, if I do this enough and we acquire enough properties, he'll be able to walk away from his job, which eventually we thought would happen, years down the line, and COVID kind of made it happen a little bit quicker.
Yeah. How do you all split responsibilities? And then do you have set times where you talk about business and finance and set times when you dedicate to that you're not going to talk about that?
To be honest, that's one thing we're always working on. I feel like it's very fluid. So, if it's a great, exciting thing, we're talking about it, right? And if it's a not so great thing, we try to not, say first thing in the morning or late at night. Like, we do try to unwind a little bit. But the dinner table, like, the kids are we homeschool, right? So our business is part of their schooling. And so our family life is business. And so it does mix and mingle a little bit, but we also make sure we have time for date nights and fun things.
How do you integrate that into the homeschooling? That's interesting. Well, first of all, how old are your kids?
11 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they're starting to understand things cost money in life.
Oh, they do.
Oh, they do. And they work for it too. So, which is great because, we've taught them, they've been real estate investors their whole life since they were in Jen's stomach. They've been at all the properties. They've seen the things since they were newborns. Mm-hmm. And so now the fact that they're older,
they were laying mulch at like 2 years old.
Yeah, my daughter was helping me lay mulch at 2, right? So
cheap labor right there.
Oh, yeah. It was I had to buy her ice cream. So there you go. But so that was the case, really, was they were raised in it. So my son, he's a 9-year-old. He gets into our CRM and he's talking with sellers at 9. My daughter, she's in our CRM and she's like, hey, Mom, the other week, she's like, Mom, this house sold. They said, stop. So I looked on Zillow, should I take them out of the CRM? And I was like, oh my gosh.
I don't know many 11-year-olds that know how to like pull up Zillow and look at this estimate and see that it's sold. And it's pretty remarkable. And just like growing a team and managing members and, how to communicate effectively with sellers and buyers, like they're all ears and they're little sponges and they know that we work really hard and we have goals, right? Like, we all want to go to Europe and Italy for a month, and we're going to have to make sure that we get all of this really, well organized and buttoned up and make a lot of money to be able to go and do these things. And so having your kids be a part of it from day one, I think, is probably the biggest piece of advice I'd give families. Like, don't shoo your kids out of it. Like, have them be there and help and be a part of the journey.
At what age did it start sticking? And the reason why I ask is because we have 6 and 8, and the 8-year-old, like, we'll pass by land, and he's to the point now of like, you should buy that. And I say, well, what would I do with it? And he's like, well, you could develop a soccer facility, or you could put a house on there. Like he's starting to get it now, but it comes in spurts. Most of the times he doesn't want to talk about it. So when did that start that they were really starting to catch on, do you think?
I think that age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say because our son right now, like the other day, he was talking about, the entities and the LLCs.
Whoa.
Like, how does this kid even like remember those words, right? I didn't know what those words were when I was his age.
Yeah, and I think the one thing too is we teach them at any very, very young age. But if anything that you want, you can have, but you're going to have to work for it. So our son will find some toy he wants on Amazon, or there's some Fortnite skin he wants, and he'll be like, "Hey, Dad, like, do you need any follow up done?" I'm like, "Why? What do you want?" He's like, "Well, there's this Fortnite skin I want, and it's $12." I'm like, "You know what to do." And he'll take my iPad, he'll get into the CRM, and next thing you know, he's following up with people and doing that because he earns it. So
he needs to do that again. Actually.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing about it is
works.
His friends were like, I see you with all these Fortnite skins. You're lucky. Your parents just, buy you all this stuff. He's like, absolutely not. He's like, I have to work for all of that.
Amazing.
And I was like, oh, it warms my heart. So part of homeschooling is, yes, learning English and math and history and all of these things. But these are real world things that they're learning now that will, affect them the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think the proudest dad moment I ever had is our son wanted to buy a Gizmo watch, which is like a watch where you can text and call to a certain amount of people and we get to restrict it and all that kind of stuff. But there's a few games on it. So it's not like a fancy watch, but it's a technology watch. And so we were like, hey, you can do your chores for, $5 a week. And once you get half, we'll match the other half. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, he was like, gosh, this is going to take forever. I'll never be able to get it. And I was like, well, what else could we do? And he finally came up with the idea of selling lemonade. And he sold $45 of lemonade. Wow. Yeah, exactly. Your look was my look as well. Because people were coming by and it's like, oh, it's 25 cents. I'll just give you $5 sort of thing. But for the last sale, he literally chased someone down who had already said no. And because they said they didn't have cash. And he's like, well, we can accept Venmo. And they said, okay. So he chased them down with my phone to go do it. It was just this moment of like a fatherhood, seeing it all click.
Yeah, you got a closer there. You got to get him in front of some sellers who want to sell.
Well, and I'm also always interested in asking other parents who are trying to teach kids, financing and things like that is, do you all pay them? And how do you all do that? Do you retain some of that as savings and teach them about savings? How do you all teach that?
So as of right now, we don't have them on like payroll or anything like that. Although our son is reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so some of the education from that, I'm paying him to read the book and write a report. And hopefully by the things that he learns, because our son, I love him. He loves to spend, right? You give him $20, he's going to go figure a way to spend all of it. So hopefully by the education of the book, he learns to make money, spend some of it, but then save a large portion too. So some of it doesn't have to come from mom and dad. It could come from getting them involved with the right book. So we'll see how that lesson goes. He hasn't finished it yet, but he's a reader. And so readers are leaders, and get them in front of the right books, get them in front of the right education. And I think that's the key.
Yeah, they're still a little too young for us to put them on my payroll, but that's some of the things that I've thought about is like, okay, how do I give them a weekly task to go do and then pay them and then save some of that money and like put it in a Roth so they can start to see like, oh, you own a piece of Disney or you own a piece of Nike or something like that. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the creative finance piece. Sorry, we did a little detour there. I'm just all about learning from others here. We're going into a market now where interest rates are dropping. So over the past 3 years, interest rates have spiked 500 bips. It's been really crazy if you have floating rate debt, even crazier if you're trying to buy a property because you don't know what the mortgage is going to be until you get to the closing table. But now that rates are basically on the way down, do you see more opportunity for creative financing or less opportunity? Hey, fellow investors, before we dive into our next segment of the show, I wanted to take a quick moment to talk to you about a fantastic opportunity for you to invest with me. As you know, here at Ice Cream with Investors, I'm passionate about real estate investing and helping you navigate the exciting world of wealth creation through real estate. And that's why, for the first time, I'm thrilled to tell you about an opportunity for you to invest alongside of me. Over the past 3 years, I've been investing in multifamily, mobile home parks, car washes. I've even become the bank and lent out money to fellow real estate investors on a short-term basis. And now you can come join me. If you would like to jump on a call and learn more about this opportunity, head to icecreamwithinvestors.com/invest and find a time for us to connect. And now back to the show.
So I'm going to be biased. I always think it's great because if rates are low or if the rates are high, for us and what we do, it doesn't matter. Like our rates in our world are always low. So I'm never going to be dictated by the market of us be able to find good quality deals. And I think that's the key. And that's why I fell in love with it, because even when rates were much, much higher, I'm still finding sellers who have a 2.5% interest rate and they need to sell the house. And they're okay with us buying it, but that loan stays in place without us having to assume it or credit checks. None of that's needed. But the loan could stay in place so we could take advantage of that much lower interest rate and the much lower payment. And that's the only way we're finding cash flowing deals, because it's so hard right now to find cash flowing deals where once you add in the taxes, the insurance and maintenance and all the other management, that there's no money left for us, the investor. And the only way to do that is to get them at a really rock solid low interest rate. So seller financing on free and clear properties, many times I'm still getting 1%. Sometimes I'm getting 0% mortgages. And then if they have a current mortgage, the deals that we're able to put together are that 2, 3, and like we've got one we're supposed to be closing in the next few days or so. They've got a 4.25 interest rate, which is not super low, but it's not terrible either. But the house is 2 years old. It's in Florida, a 2-year-old house. They're moving for their job to Texas, and they just want a quick, easy sale. They don't have time to waste. And I told them I could buy it this way and take over their low payment. And they're like, let's go do it. So it's a deal.
How did you find that deal? How do you find deals specifically, and maybe talk a little bit about what markets you look for?
So we have a little bit of a gift for your audience, but we talk about how we generate mass amount of off-market leads. And the way to do that, we've done direct mail. I've knocked on people's door. I've done cold calling. Don't get me wrong, like every way works, but like with technology now, it's been so amazing. You could get all of the leads you want by just joining Facebook groups. We have a post that we put into Facebook groups. So if I'm going to be in Tennessee and I've got a deal right now, actually in Nashville, the guy wants to sell it. We're not making the deal, but they want to sell it. They see this post and they reach out to us. So these are actually incoming warm leads, which I just love because the conversations are a lot better than if you've cold called. And so if I'm in Nashville, I could join Nashville, Tennessee groups, and there's thousands of them, and make my post. And now sellers are digitally raising their hand and saying, I have a property I want to sell. And so the name of the game, that's how this seller found us, but the name of the game is to get your post out there and have sellers reach out to you. And now after that, you could take it a step further. We do run sponsored ads too. And
you can pick anywhere. Like you can literally be in Florida running sponsored ads in New York. And, it doesn't matter where you are in the globe. You can just pick up and post. Even in the Facebook groups, you could pick anywhere. So that's really, I love Facebook. I feel like it's so underused and a lot of people kind of turn their nose up to it. Older people are on Facebook, but older people have properties. So I think that if you haven't used your Facebook profile, you should be dusting that thing off.
Amen. There are so many property that trades on Facebook that I'm just a part of these groups as well. I'm more of a silent observer lurking in the background, waiting for a deal that I think is interesting. And then I'll reach out to them. But there are so many deals that just go through some of these groups. It's insane.
Yeah, it's amazing. And when we found this out, like I can make a post in a group. And I mean, we've had one of our friends, they got 1,100 comments on one post.
Wow.
How much do you have to pay to get 1,100 incoming leads? Like that would cost a small fortune. These people are saying, I want to sell my house. And it's not always that great. That's like the record. But, to get 10, 20, 30 people to reach out in an afternoon is not uncommon.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I know you all teach individuals on how to kind of deploy some of these strategies. Jen, I'm assuming this is coming from your background of becoming a teacher. So talk to us a little bit about the program and what you all teach.
Yeah, so it really happened organically. We were just sharing what we love doing on social. And I was a teacher, yes, but he was always a team lead too. So it's kind of in both of our natures to love to share how to become better, how to look for things in a different light. And so with our program, it's really simple. I think maybe something to be said to being a middle school teacher, because some of these topics, they drove me crazy. When I first tried to learn what terms were, I was like, what the heck, right? Like it made my head spin. And so really just breaking it down to bite-sized pieces and know that you don't have to have the whole puzzle figured out. You can literally just plug and play one step at a time, create one win every single day, along the way, and be in a supportive community where you can ask any question. We're huge on culture, that it doesn't matter if you're never done a deal and you're brand new, or maybe you have a couple properties but you've never done creative, and it's just like a safe environment. It's something that I wish I had when we got started, because we did have mentors, but it wasn't like this. Like, there wasn't that safe spot, and I think that that's really important to have live calls every day that are available. Everything's all on a portal, so you can easily access it, but it's not also like a million videos where you're just lost in a sea of them. And so just really streamlining the process of taking everything that seems scary and overwhelming and just making it easy peasy.
Yeah, I love the idea of bite-sized chunks too, because I was talking to somebody the other day. I got connected through a friend of a friend who's like, hey, I want to be here. And he just started asking all these questions about being here. And I'm like, why are you talking about being here when you need to do this step first? You clearly don't have a deal or capital lined up or anything like that. Like, find a deal first and then let's go from there.
Yeah, I think we get, as humans, we just get the cart before the horse, and we get all in our heads, and then we get analysis paralysis. And so you really just got to do the first right step, and then the second and third and fourth.
Yeah. Last question I want to ask is, as you all kind of think about the next 3 to 5 years here, is there anything that you're seeing out there that is catching your interest? It's a market, it's a type of property, it's a term strategy that's working better than others. Just talk to us a little bit about how you kind of view the next 3 to 5 years here.
So I like, obviously, buying on terms, and I love the fact that you can grow so much, achieving so much more with less. So multifamily, getting into some bigger deals there that we can pick up on seller financing. Sometimes these landlords don't want to get hit with a big tax bill by selling. And if we could break it up into payments, it helps them and it helps us too. And so getting into some bigger deals like that is where we're looking for. And then obviously, as the market changes, I'm just looking for accumulating cash flowing assets. There's some markets that I absolutely love. There's some markets where I'm like, not as much. But we've done deals from North Pole, Alaska, New York, Florida, and so many different states, but narrowing it down to like the handful that we love and really sticking to those and start doing, more, but bigger deals.
Did you say North Pole, Alaska? Is that a place?
I didn't know that was a real place. I thought it was a joke. So when the seller reached out and they said they want to sell their house in North Pole, I kind of giggled, like, what, Santa want to sell? And then
okay.
There's a big U.S. military base there. There's populated, not just like reindeer.
But the power of social media, the person lived in North Carolina, and that's where our ads were running, and they had a property in North Pole that they were literally losing money on, that they were just sitting there.
So do you all own that house today?
No, we wholesaled that to somebody else. He bought it, fixed it, flipped it. Those people moved in, and then it was recently for sale. So I was reaching out to see if we could buy it back. But I think they ended up selling it.
We should.
Yeah. Alaska property prices are surprising. Well, I guess not surprising because it's so hard to get to, but to ship to stuff too, but surprisingly expensive, I've seen.
It was. I was kind of surprised. I'm like, really? There's that many people who want to live up that cold?
It was one of the fastest deals. We found a buyer like right away. We were like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm looking at it on a map. It's just south of Fairbanks, it looks like. So it's kind of near a big city there.
Yeah, it's a populated area.
Yeah. Well, I want to switch us now to our last round. We call this the 4 toppings. Jen, I'm going to start every question with you, and then Joe, flip it to you. But our first one is, what is your favorite book, or what is a book you've read recently that's given you a paradigm shift?
Ooh, a book I've read recently. I'm currently in the middle of rereading Think and Grow Rich. So I guess it's a classic, but it always speaks to me at the right time. So that's one, if you haven't read it, definitely you need to read it until it talks to you. And then once it's talking to you, you need to listen to what it's saying.
It's funny you say that, because that one gets recommended a lot. And I've had people say, oh, that one always gets recommended. And it's like, well, if it always gets recommended, there's probably a reason for that. So you should probably go read it. Joe, how about you?
I'm actually halfway through $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozy right now. Love it.
Did you watch the webinar
when
it released?
Oh, no, I didn't watch the webinar, but I watched a ton of his, and $100 million offers were great. Now onto the leads, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah, he did like a whole series of social media, like podcast interviews, and then for this big webinar. So it was something interesting to watch. You can tell he's a fantastic marketer.
Yeah.
Our second one, Jen, we'll start with you, is what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Probably one of my coaches, mentors has all these rules. And rule number 3 is don't stop doing what works, because as an entrepreneur, especially, like you get really busy and you do all these things and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, like why is this thing like, oh, I stopped doing that. And so just really being mindful if something is going awry, like what did you maybe stop doing that was working?
I have a problem with that. It's like something's going well, so I'm like, okay, it's time to add something else, and then that thing drops off, and it's like, well, don't forget what's buttering your bread, I guess is the saying.
Yeah.
Joe, how about you?
Well, I have many, but my favorite is rule number 1, revenue in first position. So first and foremost, like make some money. So I have a saying: if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So, you're buying real estate. You want to be able to make money. Find the deals that are making you money. Don't just buy a deal just because it's a deal. Make sure that you're going to do your due diligence properly, that you could actually make money on it. And that's the reason why we're in this.
Amen. Amen. Our third one is, what are you most proud of in your life?
I would say our family. I can't just say our children, but really like the family that we are, the 4 of us. We've like everybody have trials and issues and situations with family members and friends. And so at the end of the day, I just know like Joe and I are wonderful parents, and like the life that we're living and creating and being able to give our kids something absolutely amazing that most people can't, because, so many reasons, but homeschooling our 2 kids, I'm really proud of that.
So you stole mine.
Sorry.
I absolutely agree that the most proud I am is that. I would say if there's a second, would be helping so many people, because obviously we want to get as much as we can, but we also need to give back. And so when I see that we've helped somebody get their first deal, and I can see like we've done so many, it's just like, okay, another deal to us. But when somebody gets their first deal, I remember when I made mine and what a life-changing event that was. So that to truly help others do that, it's probably my second most proudest between that and, obviously our kids and what we've accomplished. It's been great.
Love it. Love it. Well, our fourth and final one is, if you could sit down and eat a bowl of ice cream with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Probably because you asked my favorite. It would be my grandma. She passed away 11 years ago, and her favorite was, or 10 years ago, and her favorite was coffee ice cream. And we just always, I always have such fond memories of stopping and smelling the roses. She was someone who just loved to entertain. Just the small things in life just were so meaningful. And just to have one more bowl of ice cream with her, I would really love that.
Aww. I would think Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, would always be mine.
Yeah.
Just what he was able to accomplish and the people he was around, and how he's helped me tremendously change my life from Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil, and so many other Master Key to Riches. That just to be around him for an hour to have some ice cream, I would just absolutely love that.
Mm-hmm. And isn't it insane? Like those principles from way back in the 1910s when he was writing it of successful people all stay true today.
Yep. He's the Mount Rushmore of
everybody else that's bit off of it.
Yep. Well, fantastic to have you both on. If our listeners wanted to reach out to you, learn more about you, enroll in your classes, where is the best place we can point them?
Well, the first place is creativefinanceplaybook.com. If you want to learn how to get these leads for free, like we talked about, we give away our lead magnet right down there. Like, go get it. And so if you go to creativefinanceplaybook.com, it's on there. And then if you want our script, there's a newsletter we put out. Our scripts are right in there. It's the same script that we're using, or our clients are using, or our team are using. So I think that's probably the best. If you have a deal that sounds like this is going to be a deal, or you need some help with a deal like this, text me or call my cell phone number, 585-313-0877. And that's my cell phone number. Like, you will have me answer, but I get a lot of deals that way, and we get a lot of leads and help people together. So I think those are the 2 biggest ways for me. And
I'm on Instagram, Delle Fave. I love it over there.
Awesome. We will leave all that in the show notes. And then Jenn and Joe, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Ice Cream with Investors. If you like what we serve you here, it would mean the world to me if you would like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favorite podcast app.